Hello. In this video, we are going to look at how to access part of a string. So if you program in Java, use a method called substring. So we're going to look at how to access substrings or parts of strings. So let's imagine a situation where I have a program that stores names, and it stores them in a very specific way. It always stores it your first initial followed by and your last name. So my name's Paul Miskew, the name would be P Miskew. So P Miskew, if we remind ourselves of our indices, P Miskew has indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because P Miskew has a length of 7. Remember, indices always go from 0 to the length of the word minus 1. So P Miskew has a length of 7, the indices are 0 to 6. So if I wanted to access that first initial to process it in some manner, I can do that using a built-in notation, and that is by including square brackets at the end of the string and indicating the indice. So let me show you. So I'm going to make a variable called finitial for first initial, and if I type the string name and I open a square bracket and I put 0, what this will do is this will access the character at index 0 and put it into finitial. So if I then go down here and I say print, your first initial is, and I give this a run. Oh, I should spell everything right. Let's try that again. Give it a run. There we go. Your first initial is P. Let's fix that. There we go. Spelling. Okay. So now let's imagine that I wanted to get the whole last name into a separate string. So I'm going to make a string called lname. So there's my variable lname. And, you know, I suppose, do something like name at 1 plus name at 2, you know, all the way up, but that's a lot of work. So what Python has done is it has a built-in notation that we can indicate the indices we want to select as a substring. Now I'm going to make a mistake here. I want you to watch what it is, because this is one of the most common mistakes students will make. I can put two numbers in here and separate them with a colon, and that is going to get miskew, I might think. But like I said, there's a small mistake here. So let's print this out and watch what happens. Your last name is... So if I run this now, I look down here, your last name is Misk. It's missing the W. And this is a really important point. This process of accessing a substring is inclusive, exclusive. So you actually have to go one past the last character you want. So instead of going 1 to 6, I'm going to say 1 to 7. And I run this. So now we have a nice little situation where if I have some system set up with a string that stores a first initial and a last name, I can pull out that first initial and process it somehow, and I can pull out that last name and process it somehow. However, there's an issue with this. Though this works, this isn't perfect, this isn't good programming practice. And think back to the video about how to calculate the length of a string. Let's imagine that instead of P Miskew, my last name was something quite a bit longer. Like, I'm just going to put a bunch of characters. So let's just say, here's my last name, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. LM. There we go. So let's imagine that's my string. I don't want to try and think of a last name. So now, if I look at this case, the indices are actually quite a bit larger. 7, 8, oops, pardon me, 8, 9, and actually let's get rid of this. Let's just go to H. So now what I have is I have a situation where my name stores my first initial and my last name, but my last name is actually longer than Miskew. And so if I run this, it works fine for the first initial because that first initial never changes that's position. It's always at index 0. But the problem is that I don't get the full last name because I'm only going to index 6 because I go inclusive, exclusive. So this is a situation where having the computer calculate the length would be a good idea. So I'm going to make a variable called length name, and I'm going to say len bracket name. And instead of manually put in the length by counting, I'm just going to actually pass it this variable. So now, notice there's the last name. The computer will actively figure out the length of that string in order to access the whole substring properly. And sometimes what people will do here is instead of making a temporary variable to hold it, they'll just actually come in here and they'll go whoop, and do it right inside there like that. So again, I really want to stress this point. Anytime you need to access the length of a string, always have the program do it for you. Because that means if you change the length at some point, it's not an issue. The program will figure it out. You're being a more robust programmer. Last point. With Python 3, it turns out that, let's imagine that I put 100 here. It turns out that if I run this, it will run fine. It won't crash. So if the length of your string happens to be smaller than your second value for this substring technique, it actually will just go to the end of the string. Again, not an ideal thing to do to put a really large number there, but just be aware that if you happen to put a number there that's really large, it might still appear like it's working correctly. As always, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Have a wonderful day.